Hey, how's it going? Today we are going to try out the deck that Henry Brand chose to bring to Worlds, Banette Dusknoir. This deck is actually really cool and a lot of fun to play. Every game is kind of like a puzzle. What we're trying to do is use Banette's first attack for one psychic does 30 damage and your opponent can't play items next turn to item lock our opponent, slow the game down a little bit and buy enough time to evolve up into our Dusknoirs. They knock themselves out and we can put 13 damage counters on one of our opponent's Pokemon. And then we have Alakazam that moves up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another, and Bloodmoon Ursaluna that does 240 damage, and the attack is 5 colorless, but it costs 1 colorless less for each prize our opponent's taken. So what we're trying to do is take 1 to 2 prizes with our Banette, moving damage with Alakazam, or just hitting into things with Banette. And then we're trying to finish off the game with Dusknoir and Bloodmoon Ursaluna, which can pretty easily take 4 prizes. So deck is really insane. It's using the PokéStop Night Stretcher combo, which I find is a lot of fun. Night Stretcher is super good in combination with cards like PokéStop. We also have Trekking Shoes in the deck, so we can just like discard Pokemon if we want with that to dig a little deeper in our deck and get them back with Night Stretcher. We also have switches for, to get into our Banette to start item locking in case we start Blood Moon, or they're also really nice at the end of the game if we end up falling behind. We can't take all 4 prizes in one turn. What we can do is Iono our opponent to 1 and attack with Blood Moon, and then we have the 2 switch and Prime Catcher to attack with it again. It's also good to note the Shuppet's first attack for one psychic does 10. We can flip a coin if it's heads, our opponent's item locked. So if we go second, we generally want to use that attack. We also have the baby Banette as like a burst seeker in a Pokemon. It lets us throw it in the lost zone, and we can grab a supporter out of our discard pile. So just either Iono or research. There's no boss in this deck because we generally don't need to gust more than once. And we have like the counter catcher and prime catcher. This isn't like a classic Banette deck where we're trying to trap a Pokemon in the active for the whole game. We're just trying to use Banette to buy a little bit of time so that we can figure out the puzzle of how we're going to take all of our prize cards. It's a lot of fun, and let's get into the games. All right, this first game we're up against, I think it's a Roaring Moon deck if I remember correctly. I'm just debating here what to do with this hand. It's pretty dead, and I might have to end up grabbing a Squawkabilly. I'm trying to think if I want to just hold the Ultra Ball and grab a Dusknoir next turn and try and like take a prize, but that doesn't really make any sense. So I'm just forced to discard the 2 candies and the stretcher, which isn't ideal, but you have to draw cards to win the game. And that last hand didn't have us in the game at all. I got exactly what I was looking for off the Trekking Shoes, which was another Duskull. That's why I discarded the first card there. And just pass. Our hand is pretty good for next turn. We're going to have to get rid of another Stretcher and a switch card, which really sucks, in the Blood Moon. But we have 2 more Stretchers to get the Blood Moon back. I just have to take note to save one of them for that because it's pretty important in this matchup in particular. Our opponent is off to a pretty solid start. I suspect that they're going to end up getting a knockout. We just really hope that they don't end up knocking out our Squawkabilly here, because that would make the game really rough. We really want them to take 1 prize right here so that we can use at least a couple of our Dusklops or Dusknoirs. They are playing catchers, it looks like. They get their Petron out. Looks like they're just going to go with a Baby Moon attack, so I think that our Squawkabilly is safe right here. They're playing the Morpeko so that they don't have to poison their attacker, which is kind of cute. I thought about that. It could be worth it sometimes, I guess. I top deck another switch. That really sucks. So I used the PokéStop before the research to see if I can get any value from my stretcher, and I do end up being able to get a Banette out of my discard pile, knock an Ultra Ball for like a Dusclops or something. It does suck having to get rid of both switch because I'm probably going to need that later for my Blood Moon attack, but I still have Prime Catcher at least. To get rid of the PokéStop, there's already one in play. I don't really need it. I can candy up in the Dusknoir right now. I don't know if it's correct. I think I do end up doing it. It's kind of questionable if that's right or not though, because if they knock out my Dusknoir, I'd be in a pretty rough spot, already being down 2 candies, and I don't end up evolving it. Now this matchup is probably pretty bad. It's like normally you're trying to buy a couple turns with the Banette, but there's really no way to buy time in this matchup. They can just always switch into whatever attacker if we want, if we try to stall something in the active. Really, to buy time, we need them to get a rough start and then item lock before they built up any energy and hope that they start whiffing. Now I promote my Shuppet here, which is definitely a mistake. And I'm realizing that now, and I'm like, well, nothing I can do about it now. Now I need a extra combo piece of an energy to retreat because I can't attack with another Banette. I need to like start knocking stuff out and attack with Bloodmoon this turn. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. I'm just Ultra Balling so that I can draw some cards before I start drawing prize cards. I can draw 2 off Mew, and then I'm going to knock out their Baby Moon. I'm trying to get rid of both attackers here and Iono them to 1. I'm just like trying to figure out if I can go for the combo or not. And then I draw Night Stretcher and Psychic, which is like the exact pieces I needed to guarantee that I can knock this Roaring Moon out with Bloodmoon this turn. I pop the Dusknoirs before Ionoing, of course, because I don't want to Iono them to 3 and then give them 2 prize cards that they're definitely going to win the game off that. They're spamming emotes, which is kind of annoying. I wish we could mute those, but we still can't. So I pop both those. Now I'm just going to stretcher back the Bloodmoon, attach the Psychic, and Iono, not put the PokéStop in play because I don't want to give them any more outs to possibly getting more cards in their hand. And now next turn, I just need to get into my Prime Catcher, which this is like the worst part about discarding both those switches early. I really need to find a switching card. Prime Catcher is the only one. I don't play the Nest Ball, which ends up biting me, but I didn't play it because I put cards on the bottom of my deck that were not Prime Catcher. So I wanted to keep my deck in that order and try and draw a PokéStop and then thin out my hand and see what happened. Because I have another Night Stretcher in my deck, and I have the Puppet offering Banette in the discard pile. But yeah, they judged me. I didn't really expect them to draw anything off that. They immediately assume that they have game with their Petron because it does do a lot of damage, but Bloodmoon's insanely broken. It has 260 HP on a basic. It's really kind of pointless. I should have lost this game if the designers made this card the correct way. But they didn't. So now I'm just going to thin out my hand and try and draw a Prime Catcher. I think I have really good odds of hitting it. I have Trekking Shoes in my deck. I have the Prime Catcher. I have the Stretcher for Banette. I have supporter cards I could draw. My deck's only 15 cards. I mean, I'm going to see a lot of cards, but I end up drawing it off the Mew, which makes it simpler, and end up miraculously winning that game. Alright, that last game was just kind of the Dusknoir Bloodmoon show, but this game, Banette is going to be a lot better. Our opponent's trying to use Rare Candy, and we can really slow down the game and buy some time with the item lock attack. Now, I'm debating what to get here, and I just end up going with double Dusknoir since we're not getting knocked out. This is a stage 2 deck. Our opponent needs a turn to evolve up. My Shuppet should definitely not be at risk. I think we find out later there's definitely a world where they could have had like a perfect hand and knocked out my Shuppet, and that would have been terrible because they just play a Switch and Entei V in this deck. This is kind of a wild list, I'm not gonna lie. And they also have Arven for Forest. I can't help but wonder if they could have got the knockout with, because I think that they play Magma Base and we find out later. And I think they could have Arven for like Ultra Ball. Oh no, maybe they couldn't have got the second energy because they would have had to Forest for Basin. But I top deck another Poffin here and get a backup Shuppet because now I see that mine is possibly at risk. And yeah, and another Duskull, and now we have our 3 Duskulls out, or 2 Banettes. This is usually all you need. That's why it's playing such a thin line of Banette. You really just need one, hopefully, to buy a little bit of time. End up putting that Dusknoir into my hand. I think I should have probably discarded it. I don't know. I was kind of hoping to hit Candy off the PokéStop, but there's a bunch of stretchers in the deck, and I could have just like seen one card more with the Trekking Shoes and then stretchered it back more than likely if I hit a Candy at some point. Now here I'm just debating popping this Dusknoir to kill the Charmander, because I'm like so in the zone of, oh, they only have one Charmander out. I need to KO it if I can, but there's just no need for that. They're not rare candying it, and the bigger threat is them getting out a Pidgeot. If they play Pidgeotto, which is pretty common in decks now, they PokéStop in a double candy, which is kind of crazy. Like, that'd be so lucky in any other matchup. And then they just have the nuts. So they have a lucky helmet and a Pidgeotto, which makes me glad I saved the Dusknoir, because that Pidgeotto is definitely going down. Like, 130 damage is so crazy on an ability. Yeah, it gives them a prize, but it's like almost better because it gives them a prize. The cards, I don't know what they were thinking. And they do play the Magma base, and we see it here. So if they could have like finagled that combo, which I would love to know what their hand was to see if there's like any way that they could have gotten that combo, the basin and another fire. They already had the switch in hand and knocked out my Shuppet. I would have just conceded, I think. Probably not. I would have played a couple more turns, but the game would have basically been over. I just burned the Nest Ball to see if the Alakazam's in my deck, and I did end up prizing that with double Shuppet, which is kind of funny. I'm gonna Prime Catcher the other Entei, just trying to decide if it's worth Prime Catchering or not. I maybe should have Prime Catchered the Radzard. I'm not sure about that though. The Entei has just as much retreat, I think, so it's probably fine. It's just a little easier to attack with the Entei. And I just killed the Pidgeotto before using Iono because I want to give them less cards. And I'm also not hitting into the Entei with the Lucky Helmet, so that's kind of nice. I thin one energy out of the deck and pre-attach to the Alakazam so that they can't boss it up and buy a turn. There is switches in the deck, but just having this attachment is always good. It's also a good attacker, which I do end up forgetting about the attack later. Like super tunnel visioning on Bloodmoon, but the attack from Alakazam can be pretty good. It does 20 for each card in your opponent's hand. I'm just debating what to pop in here for. I think I should have got something else, like another Duskull or something, because it's so easy to clean up bench space with the Dusknoir knocking itself out that it really doesn't matter filling your bench, because you're going to clear off the space eventually. Really what my goal is here though is to just buy enough time to knock out this Charmander with the Banette comboed with the Alakazam moving the damage over. Top deck into Dusknoir is really nice here. I can just get that out. But yeah, I think I have 2 more turns. I can't really tell, like the screen's super small on my editing thing. I think it says there's 20 damage on the Charmander. So there is a few more turns that I have to buy before I can knock that out. And I do end up holding this hand in case I need the switch. And I kind of want to Iono them next turn. I don't know, I probably could have just played the Iono. This deck really wants to like burn through everything really quick so you can have access to your whole deck like through your discard pile for the most part. But I know I'm at no threat of being knocked out here. Actually, could I have been knocked out? The Charizard, the Radiant Charizard needs what? No, they would have needed a ton of energy. If they played double turbo, they could have knocked me. Nope, because that would have lowered the damage. Don't mind me. But they're just loading up that Radzard, which I don't really mind because that's giving me more damage in play. And I'm also pretty sure that there's some way that they could have attacked by now, which possibly would have ended up changing the game quite a bit, but they're kind of messing up a little bit here. Either way, the item lock locking Charizard out of the rare candy is really powerful. I mean, they're playing every other card, so I'm assuming that they're playing a Charmeleon and just looking for that. So I'm kind of on a time crunch here to knock out this Charmeleon before they can evolve it, and next turn I will be able to win the game, I'm pretty sure. I still can't tell. I'm pretty sure there's 60 on that Charmander. And either next turn or the turn after, I can end up winning the game. it'd actually probably be a little bit easier to win if they do end up knocking out my Banette, so it'll put them on slightly lower prizes. Because right now, there's no way that I would need to find a switch to get into Bloodmoon, because I need to attach, yeah, I'm counting the prizes now, because I would need to attach an energy to the Bloodmoon, because I can only put them down to 2 prizes. I debate stretching here. I really should stretcher for the Dusclops, which I'm pretty sure is in the discard pile. I could stretcher for that and evolve and guarantee game next turn, because they're going to knock out my Banette, which I don't really mind. I want them to knock that out, like I was saying, to make it easier to attack my Bloodmoon. But yeah, I don't end up doing that. It is kind of funny this next turn. I don't think they end up doing much, but I already have game in my hand right now. I don't know if you guys see how it is, but they're going to knock me out. They hit me with the Zerosix, which is crazy. And yeah, it's kind of nuts. But I would have had game in hand if I stretchered for the Dusklops and evolved it. I don't know, it gets kind of weird now. We have to see what we get off the prizes, but I basically still have game. They knock out my Banette, because I think I end up top decking a Rare Candy, if I remember. No, another stretcher. So I have game in hand right now. If you could see it, you see it. But I end up going for it the hard way because I'm kind of an idiot. And I was like super tunnel visioned on needing to find Bloodmoon. But I stretcher for a Dusklops because I can just move 1 damage over to the Rotom with Alakazam and pop my Dusknoir, my Dusklops, and knock out the Rotom. And I could have stretchered for another energy and just attached it to my Alakazam, and so move 1 from the Entei to the Rotom, Dusknoir and Dusklops the Rotom, knock that out, and then attack with Alakazam for 240 damage to knock out the Entei. I didn't even need to research or anything, I just had it, but I just didn't see that until afterwards. I definitely have been getting better about tunnel visioning, but I certainly tunnel visioned here because Bloodmoon is such an integral part of the strategy in most matchups. I was just thinking like, oh, I need to use it now. But yeah, I could have won without even using the research, and hopefully I would have ended up seeing it. I'm pretty sure I would have if I whiffed the Bloodmoon, because I did end up drawing it off the research anyway. The second stretcher could have just got me a Psychic for Alakazam, and I wish I did that because that would have been a lot cooler and made the energy attachment like 5 turns earlier much more cool and meaningful. But yeah, I don't know. This deck is really awesome though, and it's a lot of fun. I haven't played too many matchups against like the big basic decks like Miraidon or Raging Bolt, but I have to imagine that they're similar to how what's it called, the Roaring Moon matchup went. It's just like you knock stuff out with the Dusknoirs and then use Ursaluna to take out the other threat, and then you kind of remove, hopefully they only have 2 attackers in play, you kind of remove both their attacking options and Iono them to like 1 or 2 and hope that they can't get to it. I'm pretty sure that Pheasantipity still draws off of, or still draws 3 if you knock them out with Dusknoir, which kind of sucks, but yeah. So that's the deck. Like or dislike, comment and subscribe. Hope you all enjoyed. It's a really cool deck. Try it out. It's a lot of fun, and have a good one.